I, 26F, have been with my partner, 27M, for 5 years, and we are getting married next year. Overall, the wedding planning has gone pretty smoothly until now. For context, there is a large age gap in my family when it comes to the grandchildren on my mother's side. My dad's an only child. My mother had me in her mid-20s and my 2 aunts waited till they were in their late 30s to have kids, so I've just been more of an extra aunt to a lot of my cousins, as there's about 4 of them, all between 6 and 10, all girls, except for my cousin Kate, 25F, who is the daughter of my mother's older brother. Now I love my family, I do, but my aunts have always been the kind of parents who can never say no to their precious children, and that has resulted in them being spoiled brats. Over the last decade, there has not been one family event that hasn't been ruined in some capacity by a child having a tantrum over something stupid. In the last year alone, we've had tantrums over not wanting to leave a party even though the party place was closing, not having the correct flavor of strawberry ice cream at our grandfather's 85th birthday, or just getting a pack of hair bows that didn't match each other's, and many others that TBH the reason why are so stupid they feel made up. And these tantrums are bad, like the full screaming, pounding the floor, and enough tears to water a field until their mothers give in to their demands. The husbands are just real walkovers, TBH, and let their wives deal with the kids. It took a long time to even bring my partner to one of our many family events just because I always knew these tantrums were gonna happen, and I didn't want to scare her away. I work with kids, so I know this is beyond not normal behavior of kids, and I know the lack of discipline is to blame, but I've never been in the position to call it out, cause in my family it's very much if you don't have kids your opinion of how to raise them doesn't count, but as the kids have gotten older it's gotten so much worse. Now onto the wedding planning. We are not having a large wedding cause neither of us want it. Between our family members we want there and our friends. It's just over 100 people. My partner's family has no kids under 16, and when the idea of having a child-free wedding came up it was clear my partner liked the idea of no one under 16, and TBH I was happy with it, as well as our dogs were gonna fill the roles of ring bearer and flower girl anyway, and we both knew there was gonna be at least one tantrum and neither of us wanted to subject our friends and her family to those. My parents and grandparents agreed that it would be nice to have no kids for a change, and with that, we sent the invitations out. Not long after the invitations went out, we had my cousin Kate's wedding. She grew up 3 hours away and hasn't turned up to really any family events in the last decade, but her mother made her invite everyone to show off, as there were over 400 people. Don't get me wrong, you could tell a lot of money was put into the event, and it was lovely, but I personally wouldn't have liked it for my day. Her new husband had a niece and nephews, so they did the flower girl and ring bearer roles, and yes, there were tantrums thrown when that news broke, and it only took 5 minutes into the wedding for a tantrum to happen cause one of the kids wanted to sit at the front and not a few pews back. My partner has gotten into the habit after 4 years of these events of keeping track of the tantrums on her notes app, and she counted 3 in the church alone. It only got worse as it was raining after, and the kids didn't want to wear jackets to get to the car, and many tears happened. The meal wasn't much better, but, thankfully, we were at the head table with my grandparents away from it, but you couldn't not hear the whining and shouting occasionally throughout the meal. Things got bad when, at some point before dessert, 2 of the kids came up to me and asked why they were not invited to my wedding as they had been for Kate's. A bit stunned, I just replied that the place we were having it was only for adults. That obviously was the wrong answer, cause almost immediately another tantrum about how apparently their parents had promised them they would be the flower girls at my wedding erupted. Thankfully they're small for their age, so it was pretty easy to pick them up and move them away from the head table, which was on a stage and away from people staring. While this was happening, my parents were confronted by my aunts asking how was it that their kids were not invited. My parent just repeated the same thing as I had said, and this also wasn't good enough. At this point, my grandfather and I were behind them with 2 of their screaming children. I honestly don't know what came over me, but I blurted out, "You really cannot see why I might not want to have your children there on my wedding day? Can you please stop discussing this right now? Is not the time and people are already staring at us." And left. Well, let's just say that while most of my family agreed with what I said, now my aunts are refusing to attend the wedding until I apologize to them and their kids and invite them. Some family members think it was the wrong time to say anything or just apology to keep the peace, but honestly I don't want to, as I don't think what I said was that bad, especially considering the thing I knew that the groom's family were saying after the wedding from what I heard from Kate and her new husband. Ada has no consensus bot, but based on the comments, op was NTA. Update, okay, so never expected this post to get as much attention as it did, so yay, here's an update. So yay, Christmas happened, and yay, it was apparently a shit show. I had planned ahead of time to spend Christmas with my partner and in-laws who live over an hour away, and then celebrate Boxing Day back at home with my parents and grandparents, but to my surprise my mother contacted me late on Christmas Day just to say the Boxing Day celebrations were called off after a disastrous Christmas meal with the family, which at the last minute included the aunts and the children. So apparently they had decided that as the family had been going NC in the week since the events at my cousin's Kate's wedding, they were gonna turn up to my great-grandmother's house for Christmas and confront me about it to my face to make me apologize for calling out their kids' behavior. They usually do their own thing at Christmas and often go to their in-laws. Forgot to mention they are married to brothers who are 2 of the weirdest men I've ever met, but that's a rant for another day. I guess they thought if my 99-year-old great-grandmother, my mom's mom, was present, I wouldn't refuse their demands. However, they failed to check that I might not be there, and according to my father, their faces when they realized their plan had backfired were hilarious. Obviously, their little terrors were running rampant and screaming their heads off, and one even had a temper tantrum cause there were no presents for them under the tree. The aunts had turned up in the middle of the Christmas meal several hours after all the presents were opened, but apparently, the kid couldn't comprehend that, according to my aunt. At one point my great-grandmother got so annoyed at the screaming she yanked her hearing aids out. No one in the family had thought to fill her in with what had gone down at Kate's wedding. It was one of those we all thought someone else had done, so she was a bit confused at first. She knew the wedding was child-free, so she couldn't understand why they were making such a fuss about it and to just get over it. She said she'd like to enjoy the likely last wedding she'll ever attend in peace away from screaming children. My family has a very dark sense of humor. Between that and what I had said earlier, I think most of my family have just had enough of their crazy excuses. Obviously, after great-granny said this, they went on about their poor angels, but they didn't have much of a leg to stand on, as pretty soon after they opened their mouths the terrors had gotten into my grandmother's homemade baked Alaska and had dropped it, ruining the desert for everyone. Apparently, my grandfather just snapped and told them to get out and let them enjoy one family event in peace, and they needed to get their children's behavior in order if they ever wanted to be invited to another family event, as their children's behavior was out of line and was only going to backfire of them the older they got. This man had served for over 10 years in the army and another 25 years as a police officer, and is terrifying when he snaps, so understandably they got out of there ASAP. My great-grandmother even opened one of her fancy bottles of whiskey to celebrate. My grandfather had been one of those who did not want to disinvite them and keep the peace. He's financially contributing to the wedding, but when I got home yesterday he gave me full permission to rescind their invitations. I had originally decided to not rescind my aunt's invitations, but give them a warning that if they turn up with their children or try to cause a scene, they will be escorted off the property immediately. But now, after an emergency family meeting on Boxing Day, we ended up just rescinding their invitations and instead just using what we would have spent on the 4 meals on jewelry for myself, my mom, grandmother and great-grandmother as a memento. My parents and partner are 100% behind me on this, and we're lucky that our venue is owned by my soon-to-be in-laws, and with that, security is included in the cost, as they have had several crazy family members' stories from renting it out for weddings and events over the last 30+ years. It's run in-house by my soon-to-be brother-in-law, so we have full control of who is allowed on the property during the wedding. My maid of honor and bestie has also volunteered herself in the case of one of them turning up in a white dress to be the one to take one for the team and spill a glass of red wine. Her backup plan is using my doys, both West Highland Terriers who will be at the wedding, who are trained to pee on command and have an accident. She's a drama teacher, so I'd be pretty confident in her being able to make it look convincing as an accident if a worst case scenario happened. In terms of if I knew the kids coming up to me at the wedding was their parents' way of guilt tripping me, yes, I did know. This is far from the first time it has happened. For example, when one of the terrors had their Holy Communion, it fell around the same time my partner and I had adopted our 2 dogs. We hadn't expected to get 2, but they were inseparable and we just fell in love with them immediately and took both home. My job requires me to work Saturday morning, so couldn't attend the church service for the communion, and there was not real way to get it off, so early on I made sure everyone knew I wouldn't be attending the church service, making sure to hand deliver a card with money in for the child the day before with a small gift, cause apparently to my aunt's money doesn't count as a gift. Anyway, later on at the meal, the sister of child who had their communion just came straight up to me during the event and asked me why I never turned up to the church in front of everyone, and asked where was their puppy. Apparently, my aunt had told them one of my puppies was for them. Let's just say tantrums happened, and the puppy they did end up getting lasted 1 week, as now it lives with my in-laws. They hadn't pulled that stunt in a while, at least not to myself, so I guess that's what threw me off more than anything else. As with what was said by Kate's in-laws, not long after I got back to the table, Kate's now mother-in-law sent us over a round of drinks to help with our growing headaches, and there was a lot of how on earth do you deal with this on a regular basis? And oh boy, they're gonna be nightmares when they're older. We were also betting with the rest of the bridal party when the next tantrum would happen. My partner won betting when there would be one just before the speeches, and a few rounds of who could guess what the reason for a tantrum was, thanks to my partner's 4-year-long notes. Kate's in-laws also share my family's dark humor, so later in the night we were betting which would be the worst once the teenage years and all those hormones hit. Was it the most adult way of dealing with it? Probably not, but was too drunk and annoyed to care about that. Comments. The last moan go. Glad thing are working out, and just have to say, loving your great-grandmother. Op. Oh, truly the woman is iconic. She also technically got this whole saga started as she set me up with my partner all those years ago. Gratified viewer. 3 fucking cheers for grandpa and great-grandma. Those 2 are easily the heroes of this story. Of course, after the little shits ruined dessert, I wouldn't be surprised if other relatives were getting in line to tell the aunts off. Op. Oh yep, they ruined dessert for basically every family member over 50, was about 25-ish people, and a lot of them live over a day's drive away, so only get my grandma's baked Alaska once a year at Christmas, so they were not pleased at all. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Discovered my wife's affair profile while on vacation after overworking myself for months, so I catfished her into meeting a stranger at a hotel where I ambushed her with divorce. My wife and I met when we were both working in the same office building 7 years ago. She was working a few floors below me and we would often ride on the elevator together when we got to work. I always thought that she was cute, but I was a little nervous to say anything. As it happened, one Saturday I had to run into the office to grab some things. When I was leaving, I got on the elevator and she was there. Without anybody else around, we struck up some conversation and I jumped on the opportunity to ask her out. Things got serious with us pretty quickly when she got pregnant about a year into our relationship. It wasn't the end of the world for us. It was unexpected, sure, but there was some excitement there as well. Don't get me wrong, now that our son is here we both love him more than anything in the world, but if we could have had him at a different time we would have. We had some struggles in the first couple of years of our marriage because I think we both felt like we were forced into it. Even through all of that I never doubted that she was the one. We both loved each other and we were dedicated to working through our problems. As we got older, things slowed down for us. She was able to quit her job to focus on raising our son, and I was doing very well at work. One of my coworkers tragically passed away unexpectedly, and while my entire office was mourning the loss, we had to pick up the work left behind. After their death, I had taken on a large sum of their workload. Because of that, I was spending long nights in the office, going in on weekends, and even on some holidays. I cared a lot about my work and I wanted to make sure everything was getting taken care of, plus I thought there might be an opportunity for growth if I continued putting the work in. My sex life with my wife virtually died when that happened. It's not at all like I wanted it to be, but I was so exhausted after every day that the thought never even crossed my mind. I wanted to go home and eat dinner then sleep. It wasn't for lack of trying on my wife's part either. She would tell me that she wanted us to spend more time together, and I would promise her that we would after everything was finished with work. I know that none of this is exactly my fault, but if I were to take any of the blame for what happened it would be my work. Projects that were supposed to take weeks took months and I was overworking myself to the point of being physically ill sometimes. I hit my breaking point with work when I realized that I had worked for 22 days without a single day off. I spoke to my boss and I told him about everything I've been doing. He assured me that my work hadn't gone unnoticed. He gave me a handsome bonus and I cashed out a week of vacation to take some time to relax. I was excited to be able to decompress at home with my family. However, when I was home and doing nothing I had all the time in the things that were off with my wife. As much as she wanted us to be intimate just weeks before, she didn't seem to be interested when I was free. Of course, I didn't want to pressure her or push her, so just let it slide. She had been spending a lot of time at the gym working out. I hadn't even noticed the changes in her until I was on my vacation. She had toned up a lot of her body, she got her hair done, and she had a lot of newer clothes. I asked her why she had changed so much, and she got mad at me for only just noticing, but then she told me that she just wanted to feel more confident. I tried to assure her that I thought she was beautiful either way, but I told her that she looked great. During the week, I honestly got a little bored without having anything to do. Tax season was coming up, so I started going through my banking information to prepare. As I was going through, I found some strange charges that I wasn't familiar with. Almost everything I saw was accountable and recognizable in my bank statement except for these few charges. I didn't know what they were, so I googled the charge name to see what came up and I thought maybe that would jog my memory. What I discovered was that it was a charge for a website called Ashley Madison. When I first heard the name it sounded familiar. I knew I had heard it somewhere before, and initially, I thought it was some kind of hair care thing my wife must have gotten. However, when I looked up what it really was I found out that it was a website for married people to find others interested in affairs. My heart shattered when I read that. I knew that I wasn't the one who subscribed to it. My wife had paid to use an app that would set her up with another person betraying their marriage. I needed to see for myself if she was actively having one. I made an account on the website, making a fake profile to snoop around. Unsurprisingly, there were a lot of other accounts that were clearly fake and phishing for information on the users. After some looking, I found my wife. She had pictures of herself showing her face completely. Anybody that knew her would instantly recognize it was her if they saw it. She was barely being discreet about wanting an affair. On top of that, in some of the pictures she was wearing very little clothes. She was clearly showing off her body to potential affair partners. She stated in her profile that she was looking for fun because she felt like I was ignoring her. I was furious and heartbroken all at the same time. It was very confusing to understand where she was coming from by saying she felt like she was being ignored. I knew that I had been working a lot, but it was out of my control a lot of the time. I took the opportunity to message her and flirt with her to see if she would react. I told her that it was such a shame that her husband was ignoring her because she was flawless and he didn't know what he was missing. Not long after I sent the message, she replied. She was fully responding to every advance. She was being extremely sexual too. She was asking me for pictures, offering to send some in return. I knew then that this wasn't her first conversation on the website. If she had been talking to other men like this, just how far had it gone? When she got home I pretended like I knew nothing. She had just got back from the gym so she was hopping in the shower. I took that opportunity to look for the app on her phone and see what she'd been saying. When I found it I saw dozens of messages between her and other men. The most shocking part of it all was seeing men that she and I both knew talking to her. They were our son's friends' parents, people in the neighborhood, and some people I even worked with. I had no idea that many people would be using a website like this, but we live in a pretty messed up world. One of the guys in our neighborhood that she had been messaging had told her he was fantasizing about her for a long time before he saw her on the app. She said that she felt the same way. From all the messages that I read, it seemed like this was the only person she had made plans to meet up with. It was clear from the context of their messages that they had slept together and were planning on doing it again. On top of that, I found messages with another man that led me to believe that my wife was considering meeting up with him. Right away, I knew that I needed to catch her in the act. She and I married so hastily that there wasn't a prenuptial agreement or anything of the sort. I needed to catch her and get evidence, and then I could proceed with the divorce. So, I used my catfish profile to the best of my ability. The good thing about being married to my wife for as long as I was is that I knew exactly what to say to her to get her to fall for me. Within a few days of me using the app, she was willing to meet up with me. I gave her an address to a hotel and told her to meet me there. I was honestly kind of shocked when she agreed. It was extremely risky to meet up with a strange man on the internet, and she was willing to throw everything away for it. She had no idea who I was. Meanwhile, I had reached out to the wife of the man she slept with and I told her everything. She was hysterical when I showed her what I found. I calmed her down and I convinced her that we needed to think logically and we needed to catch them. I helped her make a fake profile too, and we were able to convince her husband to meet at the same hotel. Our plan was in motion and all we had to do was confront them both. The time came and we left room keys for both of them at the front desk and told them to grab them and head up. My wife arrived first and she messaged me to tell me that she was waiting in the room and attached a picture of her in her lingerie. The guy she had been sleeping with arrived next and was clearly shocked to see my wife there. After a minute of them being in the room alone together, both his wife and I went and joined them. When we opened the door, both of them were silent as they watched us. My wife grabbed the blanket from the bed and tried to cover herself because she was half naked. They tried to act like we were in the wrong for catfishing them, but they didn't have a leg to stand on. I told my wife that I was done with her and that she had really broken my heart with her actions. I could tell that she felt guilty about it and she tried to once again put the blame on me for ignoring her when I was working. I told her that didn't excuse what she did. Both I and my neighbor's wife filed for divorce not long after that. We had mountains of evidence of their affairs against them. Apparently, he had been with many women since downloading the app. I was able to come out on top during the divorce. My wife didn't work, so spousal support was the biggest argument that we had, but my lawyer was able to get me out of payments. I got custody of our son, but she has visitations of him. The reasoning for that was that she was so easily convinced to meet up with a stranger online. They were able to convince someone that she could potentially bring a harmful person home. I feel like I'm picking up and starting anew with my life now. It's daunting, but I'm honestly glad that I found out about her true colors before we were 15 years into our marriage.